drive by his house in the truck, and he says, you do sweeping downtown, maybe use that, so.
Okay, any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Y'all have been.
Same.
Next on the agenda, we have Mary Williams.
I'm just gonna stay right in line with what we were already talking about. I know we have to have a level one operator at the water plant. Who is that level one that is signing off on all mandated reports?
We got, what's the guy?
Lou Pluckett.
Okay, okay. That's what I was looking for.
Okay. Okay. And then we have Catherine Corcoran, she'll talk about the state police, and Thomas Mitchell. Come on up.
So surprisingly, I had actually not planned to speak at this last month's meeting. But something came up that I think is important enough that needs to be on the record. I think every time this council is asked for accountability, what they get is excuses. And multiple times I have just said that this council should do their own due diligence rather than relying solely on what Thomas Mitchell tells you. And this is one very important example of that. In the last meeting in November, you discussed a new development here in Statham, and what was discussed is that there is a sewer pipe in the dam of that development. And you have the developer and Mr. Mitchell both stand up and virtually gleefully say, yes, there's a sewer pipe in the dam, but it's legal. It's legal. And that should have raised serious red flags for everybody sitting up here. So right after that, I did some open records requests. And just to be very clear, the documents that I got both from the city and from Mr. Mitchell. So he was aware of this as he was advising me, and I don't know if you've seen these documents or not. I don't know what's in your packet. But this is from an EMI engineering report that was done only about a year ago for this same property. And essentially this report says that EMI, the city's own engineers, do not recommend that the city owns that sewer line, that it is bound to fail soon, and when it does, it could be catastrophic. And so now the city has taken couple $100,000 in bonds from this developer, which will not come near covering the cost to rectify damage to those houses if they are built in flood. You have another development right here in Statham that has flooded numerous times, and that has to do with negligence on the part of inspectors for those properties. But a few lines from this report are, EMI has been asked to provide an opinion to the city as to the sewer line EMI has been asked to provide an opinion to the city as to if the sewer lines are even potentially acceptable based on their locations around existing ponds and dams. It goes on to say, if regulated, the state will not allow utilities, sanitary sewer, to be constructed parallel to the face of the dam or the toe of the dam. However, it is still not desirable to have sewer lines in or near these areas anyway, as future maintenance would likely be costly and risky. And then it goes on to describe some of the pictures that are in this report, and you can get this report directly from Ms. Chang and read it for yourself. It says the line from the cul-de-sac to Providence Church Road traverses between the two existing ponds, presumably underneath the earthen fill between them, and the pipes are underneath the corrugated metal pipes that allow flow from the upper pond to the lower pond. The reason that's important is because another document that I presented to the city, which is from the city itself, is this document. It's guidelines from the EPD and the Georgia Natural Resources. Again, you can get this online, or you can get it emailed. And on page 5 of that report, it says particularly that sewer lines cannot be in bodies of water, and if they absolutely must be near a body of water, then they need to go from a lower level to a higher level. That's on page 5 of that report. So, again, I'll read that last part of that sentence. It says, flow from the upper pond to the lower pond. So it is descending downhill. This is a very suspect location to have a sewer line for any future repairs. And then it goes on to say, in addition, the piping is corrugated metal, which will ultimately corrode and fail. We would not recommend the city owning this line. And finally, it says, we also recommend that the developer accurately locate the line between the cul-de-sac and Providence Church Road so that it can be verified that the line is not under the lower pond at all, and that the line is accessible for future maintenance if needed. It's not accessible, the picture showed it's not accessible, it's under the ground. So, for the final time that you will, I guess you'll hear from me next week, but virtually for the final time, I'm encouraging you not to take the word of Thomas Mitchell. Do your own diligence. This city has been involved in multiple lawsuits as a result of not doing your own diligence, not using your voice when you have an opportunity to. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thomas, do you have an opinion on that?
The question was the sewer line legal or illegal? We'd ask EMI for an opinion on that, because frankly, this, based on conversations with Jordan, it would have been the city's preference to require them to move it. During the discussions with that developer before the final plat, we asked them to do it, and they determined that it was gonna cost well over $100,000 to do it, and they refused to do it. So, but based on what we were told by EMI, the city could not tell them, say that it was illegal and would not be acceptable. The fact of the matter is all that was done many years ago, and the city, it is what it is. And if we had had a basis to deny final plat approval based on that, or not accept those sewer lines, based on the engineering opinion, we probably would have, or would have recommended it. It would have ultimately been up to you all. But the engineer's opinion was, well, it's not best practices, and it probably will be a problem. It's not illegal, and because of the approvals that had already been granted many years ago, there was little the city could do about it, unless they were willing to go and take it.
Can I follow up with that really quickly? In this same report, again, that you can get from Ms. Chang, you can just do an open records request for my open records request and get exactly what I'm seeing. In this same report, what it says is that the city never accepted those initial sewer lines. It's never been inspected, and it's never been accepted by the city. So at no point has this already been accepted by the city, because it began as a development that was going to be put in place in the early 2000s before the recession. It was not built, and so those lines were never inspected according to this report, and the only thing I can rely on are the documents. So get a copy of that report, read it for yourselves, and I would suggest that you not place this burden on future citizens of this town when you know that it's going to be a problem.
Okay, are we using,
I'm all for this.
does the sewer
There's
go
no
up
outage
far,
nothing there yet.
up Providence Road yet?
That's the,
That's
No,
Lakes of Statham.
Does it go up that far now?
No, not the way it's saying, no.
It doesn't go up that far.
They ain't never built anything in there.
Right, but any of the communities past Lakes of Statham or anything past that point, is that line being used
No,
for sewer now?
no.
the sewer map is on the back of this if you'd like, so you can look for yourself. It shows you exactly where the
Well, if
current
it's-
sewer lines are. And they go up at least to Ellerby Road, which is right before the Lakes of Statham. But the sewer that's installed under the ground in that Lakes of Statham plat have not been connected to the city sewer because they have not been inspected yet.
That's correct.
Okay, well, we need to pay attention to that situation. They're using corrugated, thought they used something different for sewer.
The court, it's the spillway that's corrugated. It's the line from the ponds that are corrugated.
Right.
It's not the sewer line that's corrugated.
Okay.
The developer that built it in the early, 2000s elected to, and there again, what EMI, what she's reporting, the developer did it, I guess, in a manner that it didn't correlate with what's going on today. And it was an easy way for him to get the sewer, and a quick way to get the sewer from one point to another. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it was a simple way for the developer to get the water coming down from one. It's got two different entrances, and that was kind of catching what she was saying, from the second lake to the first lake,
Right.
where it would bring it into the main.
That's not
So-
entirely correct, Mr. Jackson. Again, if you get this report right here, the guidelines from Georgia Natural Resources, these guidelines have been in place for actually a few decades. And like I said, if you look on page 5, it will particularly say that you cannot have a sewer line in a body of water. And that's what was done by this previous developer. It was done incorrectly.
Right, well,
And
that's what
I'm
I'm
simply
saying.
saying that the city council has a responsibility to make sure that this new developer gets everything right, rather than passing that problem on to new citizens of Statham buying brand new houses that they will have invested their potentially life savings and hard work in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Comments? The last meeting, y'all talked about they would put up a bond, is that, for X amount of years, but then it will expire? I'm just asking.
The bond is in effect, I'll pull up the bond. There were 3 different bond documents. One had to do with, the infrastructure in there, and that was based on the number of permits. The one that has to do with the dam was sufficient to drain the lake so that line could be repaired in the event that it failed.
2 times,
2 times.
$300,000.
I think it was around 200, but if the developer is forced to do that before construction begins, it will be a lot less costly than it will if you have dozens of homes flooding or whatever else potentially might happen in the future.
Right.
Okay.
Two of us have a question that we want to ask. Are the ponds uphill from the homes?
No.
No.
So as far as,
The dam
so as far
reaches,
as the dam breaching, that wouldn't flood the homes?
it's not a category 1 dam. There's no residences in that. Now, if the dam were to fail, it would cross Providence Road. I can't remember what the estimate of how long it would take for the road to not have a water problem, but it's.
So again, accountability is better than excuses in
But
this case.
you've been espousing that, your big concern is houses being flooded, but the houses are above the ponds.
There are houses below that, and you have no way of predicting.
We've just been told that the houses are above the pond.
Read the report, which says that the dam, the pipe that's in the dam flows from the upper pond to the lower pond.
Sure.
And what that is a problem for is sewage leaking into a water supply in Statham. The dam is also in very poor condition. It goes on to say that in this report. You can read the entire report for yourself. I only read a portion of it for you. It says that the dam is in very poor condition. A person that some of you respect and some of you do not, Tony McDaniel, who has a great deal of experience in this area, has taken a look at that dam and believes that it is in very poor condition and can fail. And just like you can't predict what the
Okay,
rainfall will be
let's-
from year to
let's,
year, you can't predict how
I
that
think we
dam is
understand
gonna
the
fail.
problem, so
I have forwarded the email that has those reports and recommendations to all of you.
Okay,
You got them.
all right, thank you. All right.
Executive
Next, yeah, executive session. When you go in executive session for personnel,
Yeah, have a motion,
I make a motion.
all in favor?
How's the work, how's the job done? I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, how you doing?
most of them is sewer pipe.
And if you were going into the lake state, probably the sewer line.
Well, let me finish what I was gonna say. With the runoff, it's not, the runoff runs under the bed, under the road. Oh, we did, my brother had that property. So even though, no, homes are red, it's gonna be so hard. Where the runoff is running on the road, we don't want that to run. Where it goes under the road.
I'm not saying that the sewer running out onto the lake is gonna flood, is gonna flood the pond. What I'm saying is, there's two problems, you got two problems. It could, but I'm saying there's two problems. You have a failing dam, actually, there's 3 dams on that property. The city is on the counter, and there's 1, there's 3 dams on that property. And that sewer line was
But I'm just saying, well, like I say, $300,000, I think it's a two bond, two times
The only way that bond can be used is if somebody determines that the sewer line corrupt. Otherwise, they're gonna say, no, we get, that bond stays right there in that thing. So they can't just use it for any.
Well, like I say, somebody might say, $100,000. So we allow, they will not just take for it to get off the bottom.
Make them fix it. That's exactly right.
John, how you say?
Well, that's what this report says. Like I said, they need to read the whole thing. Yeah, that's what this says. That's what it says. I can read you a few lines of it.
Well,
You can get this report and read it. I mean, literally, are they going to stop the line on his shed? Or they're gonna start doing their own homework?
That's 8th Street. And he needed the property to do it. Well, I knew that was a lie because the house in front of me was gonna sell, so that would change. And that's when I wrote, so when they moved, that don't make any sense. And so, I wouldn't sell, it's my parents' property, but and so I wouldn't sell it to him, but he can't come to me, come to me. And I said, don't come see me anymore, I'm not selling it. Because I know you're lying, and I'll figure out. It's okay.
Yeah, well,
They thought they could get away with it. When it got my name, I started investigating. And if I knew, I would be away. That's what I thought. Then they go on this side, because they have enough land. So the property, the old mayor, the guy who lives there, it's the old mayor's stuff. I was going.
Stay away
And so they sold that land, and part of my property went with that one. So I got to get that property back to the man in front of me, because the fence on it, when the people didn't have to run out. So part of that's mine, so everybody's taking my property. backs up to all this grass. And part of the back to those grasses. They went so, like, Mommy, I did a cake dress and all this, did you do that? Tell me how to do that. And Jerry.
Well, like you said, that's why, let's keep all
But it's all,
hands, and all your happy.
but I consider, you're right. But see, Robert can go
But
there.
I've got all the glass.
And you just have salad.
It was on.
And they said, well,
Tony was good to me. Mom's told me stuff like that. His mother and my dad.
Down there on that property they had for sale on the left.
because
This is, I guess, the best place that
Well, he wanted me to borrow money and some figures like we were higher on.
Yes, ma'am.
But my car rate's already on, so. It is like that, nobody puts it on. But it's on the lower end, it's a smaller, there's some because one of them called, some of them are like behind them, you know, junkyard is, and top dog is back there. Andrews and the rest of them, but none of those have sewage. None of them. The only, signature foods and the other food store that's, where the park store used to be, those are the only two that have sewage back there. Because I've checked the orders. In fact, I need to have the, check the orders this month to see if they started spraying soup, but I don't think they have. But I just thought I would put that
Would it be fair to comment on what we're talking about?
exactly, I understand.
I'll be all, I'll see what I can find out.
Yeah, but, Tony was, he said, he cut the EPS, he went down through it, you can see where the water in those, manholes are going. And, if they can see that it's not going to, it's not, it's. Right now, my pastor's gone out, so I need to get. I have a brother that's got cancer, I don't want him to be. My place.
Thanks to her.
No, you're good, you're good.
I'm trying to, but I need to get this house so I can get to Jordan goes over on my property.
I worked out at high school in Statham County for years, and
They don't like to talk about it.
3 years.
There's a cover, there's a cover.
I'll take a risk, and they pass their nose.
Sometimes you just gotta.
I appreciate it. There's a lot being thought for that they don't.
We just gotta get things in the right path. It's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
I can sell the summer.
My day was very hard. They work, that's not, I think water is not nearly enough. Yeah, not, this one, we used to cut a chicken.
Well,
He never got a chicken.
what they were saying about when that was, it's, the lake right
They go long.
has a problem, two different times. One time was during the summer.
No, I hadn't known that.
Oh, really?
It rains a whole lot. It becomes contaminated.
Crystal was, probably, I mean, usually have fall.
Okay. We'll need a motion to come out of executive session. Harry made a motion. All right. We have any other business? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, you got to say a vote.
Everybody vote, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Thank you all for coming.
That saved me a walk up there. What happened to her? Who's in charge? No answer, Mayor.
Probably because you know what he said. Yeah, I know what you did.
I can, I'll let you.
I know why you only buy.
It's got a hot guy that knows numbers. Real numbers.
You don't have the minutes.
Honey, I'm coming. You all right?
Add it to that.
Motion